At the project expansion stage, a lot of the requirements are quite similar to applying for a new project, in that you still have to go through your new tenement approvals, the environmental issues, you might have native title issues, you might have landowner issues. So it's really needs to be approached where you're making a significant expansion from the same angle as applying for a new project approval, and they can quite often take a similar time frame. I guess the one issue that you need to bear in mind, which is different for an expansion, is that you need to consider how that impacts upon all your existing approvals or your existing arrangements, which might be contractual and things you've promised people in the past for your existing project, how that's going to change. Project expansions are popular, obviously easier in one sense to get up than a greenfield project. So we have been seeing a lot of expansions over recent years to make use of existing infrastructure and the like, rather than starting afresh.
A key consideration for clients at the exit stage is ensuring that it closes out all its various financial commitments concerning the mining operation. In the case of infrastructure, that might mean transferring, terminating, or finding other ways to close out what might be very significant financial commitments that it took on when it entered into those infrastructure access arrangements in the first place. Or if there is no clear exit strategy of that type, the client needs to know that at the time that they're actually entering into those contractual arrangements in the first place. There might be a big financial tail at the end.
At closure, the key employee relations considerations generally relate to making sure that the owner consults with the unions and employees in relation to redundancies, and also to take care that they understand and comply with the various redundancy entitlements that will attach to those redundancies. One of the major trends in relation to the closure phase of a mine is just making sure that the various obligations in relation to redeployment are considered. So one of the issues that's emerging is a failure to redeploy people to other mines or other parts of the business, and that creates a risk.
Key considerations from an environmental perspective for the closure of mines relate to an early assessment of likely contaminated land that may be present across the mine site, and critically an understanding of progress on the rehabilitation plans that have been implemented over those mine sites. The common practice for progressive rehabilitation requires early lead times in rehabilitation planning and becomes a significant issue in negotiating closure strategies with regulators.
The trends at the closure point are similar to the trends at the investment stage. Because of the increased automation and use of technology, we're seeing an increased difficulty in separating complex systems which are often licensed across groups and necessary to give the purchaser of a divested entity the assistance they need to continue to operate the mine.
In the exit phase, we are finding that the traditional model that has worked very well over a long period of time is changing, and it'll continue to change over time. What we are doing as a team is looking at whether the mechanisms that we used in different times still remain appropriate for where we are today and where we want to be in 20 years' time. Dilution, buyout, they're all well-known remedies, but as things change, it's appropriate to look again at those remedies to determine whether we can do things better and to make the process of exit simpler.
For an international player, at the exit point, there's a question about whether the transaction will be within the Australian tax net or outside of it. The Australian tax laws have moved in relatively recent times to confine the taxable transaction to something which is related to interests in Australian land, and in particular mining rights are the main item. And so for the offshore player who has invested into Australia and is now looking to exit, the key focus is on whether that exit transaction is going to be taxed here in Australia or taxed in the home jurisdiction or both. At the exit stage, I guess there's a range of different possibilities. One is a scenario where your miner is exiting the project entirely, and in that situation you're really looking at the CGT implications, or often at the CGT implications. For a foreign-owned group, that's a key area of focus because of the change of the law in that area. But sometimes that exit, you're really just dealing with disposing of part of the operations or one mine amongst many. And in that situation, you're looking at how should you distribute the cash from that realisation to shareholders in an efficient manner. So that's another area of focus at the moment.